got me $125 a month. They're still paying it. It comes in regularly. It's more regular than Social Security. $125 a month, you're telling us? Why, we read in the newspaper the other day, $500,000 for the laws that it begins to dawn. The light bulb, what gives here? He blew the products liability case. And then you get another lawsuit, right? The lawsuit within the lawsuit for legal malpractice against the comp lawyer, and they stick him for $450,000. You see? So you third party it. That's the lesson. You third party. Now in this case that I'm talking about, Theodore against Daniel O'Connell and Sons, there's no third party. This was not a negligently designed or constructed or quality control, nothing against the third party. It's solely against the employer, and that means you have the exclusivity bar. We don't have the wonderful English rule that the injured employee has an option. If he can prove negligence, he's got the tort shot. We don't have that. You're locked into the comp system. It's comp or nothing. So that's all his husband can get. You know what it came to? It came to $211.37 a month, and he ended up in a striker frame bed, paraplegia. He'll never get out of that bed. He'll be a wheelchair prisoner if he does. He'll never be able to lift the baby up. JFK couldn't lift his babies up. He had a bad back, see? Loss of amenities, loss of companionship. And all of that's perfectly orthodox and conventional stuff. Comes now the wife and sues the employer in tort for negligent impairment of her consortium, the three alliterative S's, services, society, and sexual relations. By this negligent accident, you have converted me from a loving wife to a lonely nurse. And love, which was once a fountain, is now a well. And the jury understands that. It's the only fun the poor people have. Don't go for overkill. Understatement has interfered with your marital relations, Mrs. O'Toole? Huh? All right. And the wife then is suing in tort to recover for negligent impairment of consortium. And the children, would you believe, three little minors, are suing for negligent deprivation of parental companionship. He can never go hunting or fishing with us again. Frolic, wrestle with us when he comes home, and all gone with the wind, you see. Daddy's a cripple. No. It can be a wounding of the mind, a loss of companionship, the close companionship of a family unit. Is there anything better in life than it? And then the wife and the kids go down to the hospital and see the wasted father, and there's the mental suffering. Now, they were not touched. They were not within the zone of danger. This was a factory accident. How could they be? They were not eyeball observers. They were not bystanders. This is beyond bystander recovery. And recover, you see. This is what I mean about the common law is always in the process of becoming. Let me close out on negligent suffering with a case when they start asking, but is it for real? When the man says, I feel bad. This is the Miami Serpentarium, the mise en scène. Some of you may have been there, where they got the big vipers and the snakes. And it's a heroic fellow that operates it, the proprietor. He has got built up an immunity to these poisonous snakes, and he's always given of himself to make the anti-snake venom. He's celebrated as a hero, a regional hero in those parts. Now, the big tourist attraction down there was his crocodile pit. And he had an African crocodile, none of this small silhouette-type Everglade alligators. He had an African croc that was 18 feet long, 2,200 pounds. And they had a retaining wall, it was about 36 inches. Not as high as an alligator briefcase, you know. The Fish and Game Commission had cited them 9 times. You got to raise the retaining wall, man. It's a protective device. Instead of raising the wall, they lowered the pit. Maybe the crocodile appreciated that, but there it was. Father takes his young son, about 6 years old, to see the big croc. And he had just had a vasectomy. A vasectomy is never having to say you're sorry. See? One is enough. Got him a little boy, the apple of my eye, and he's there. The old man goes back to the litter basket to get rid of the empties and the Coke bottles and stuff. And hears a scream, and he turns around. The little boy's not inside. He's obviously tumbled over. I used to think that crocodiles and alligators were like lazy bones, sleeping in the sun. Went after him like that. They carnivores, if you ever watch them feed him. That thing shot right after that kid and got him in his jaws. Started to smash his head against the side of the stone wall. The father jumped in. The uncle was present. He jumped in. The uncle had a broom. He's beating on the back of the croc. That really disturbed the crocodile. The father's trying to pry the jaws apart. See, it's easy enough to close him, but you try to pry him apart. And he's tugging it, lacerated his finger, laid it bare. Impact. Ha ha ha. He's going to be all right. He got an impact, see. But the uncle didn't. He's beating on he's dusting off the crocodile. See? So the croc battered the kid's head, then he took him into the deep water. Dead on arrival when he got to the hospital. And the father felt bad. Does that sound like an exaggerated, fake claim to you? And then he had to get on the telephone and call the mother up, you see. Now, when they talk about, hey, we can't have a bystander recovery, man, unless the mud guard, if it brushes the mother and she has a miscarriage, that's all right, see. But not on the front lawn, seeing the harrowing sight, or in the window. I sometimes get into that. My mind goes back to St. Peter's Cathedral and the Basilica. And some of you remember, if you go up those stairs, to the right it used to be, there's a statue of the Pietà. That's the universal symbol of the sorrowing mother. And I think it's a timely and telling reminder that not all sorrowing mothers are accident fakers. Well, I've not only exhausted my time, but I'm now trespassing on eternity itself. I'll remind my friend Ted Rachlin that when he told me about be brief and be practical, within the limitations of one's gifts, one has tried to be practical. I respect the concept of practicality. I was once introduced to a legal group by the wretched mayor of Minneapolis, and he said, we have Professor Lambert with us today. He looked very despairing. He said, a professor is a man who would look like a foreigner in any country. Thanks a lot, Your Honor. And so it's not bad enough. You should get a professor who smells of the lamp. We all do. But you get one who's an editor as well. And an editor has been defined, as I have demonstrated, as a man who approaches all ideas with an open mouth. Be practical. Respect it. They asked Conrad Hilton the other day what was the most important single thing he had learned in his long life. And he said, put the shower curtain inside the tub. I don't know why you're laughing. I respect that. I think that's marvelous stuff. Be brief. Be practical. Be funny. Impossible. The only story I know is something that happened to a friend of mine who runs the Beacon Hill drugstore. It's on Mount Vernon and Charles Street in Boston. Some of you have passed it, by it many times. He got up real early, 5 a.m. one morning. He wanted to get operational in a hurry. He called the pharmaceutical supply house. There was nobody there at 5 a.m. but the janitor who picked up the phone and said, hello. He says, now get with us. I want to get operational right away. He says, I want 2,500 milligrams of the chloromycete and the chloramphenicol. Says, I want my usual order of testosterone. I want my regular order of hair dye, but don't give me any that's got any paraphenylenediamine in it that gives you the periarteritis nodosa. Now, you got my order. And the janitor just said, man, when I told you hello, I told you all I know. So, be brief, be practical, be funny, be philosophic. I tried not to be philosophic. I may not have succeeded. Because philosophy is a word of many meanings, right? And many of them, if not most, are very chilling in their implications. I didn't mean it in that sense. I have in mind the young fellow he had big eyes for an attractively arranged young girl, but he was very nervous and shy. His brother was more of a boulevardier, man of the world type, and he said, how do you bring this up? He says, nothing to it. You invite her to a very posh restaurant, and you sit her down, and when she's comfortable, there are 3 foolproof subjects. You can't fail. Family, food, and philosophy. So he gets her seated in this lovely restaurant, and he says, do you have a brother? No. 1 down and 2 to go. Do you like spaghetti? No. 2 down, only 1 to go, and a long silence. If you had a brother, would he like spaghetti? Now, I don't mean it in that sense. I would have aspired to be philosophical in the sense of trying to understand and to care about the aims and aspiration of our society, our country, in a moment of time and its planetesimal course, and to try to narrow the gap in our practice and our endeavoring between where we are and where we would like to be. Be philosophical. And then Ted's imperative mandate, be through. And I think of what the little girl said. I love a finished speaker. I really, truly do. I don't mean one who's polished. I just mean one who's through.